Now, these middlemen publishing companies that I talked about, what they're doing now is they're charging the author to produce the book, and they're also taking money out of their pocket every time a book is sold. So they're getting paid on both ends. And that doesn't work out too well for the author at all. I've heard some horror stories of authors making maybe 90 cents on a book or $1.50 for every book that's sold, when if they did it independently under our model, they might be making $4 to $6 per book. So you have to be careful.
Welcome to another episode of From Startup to Wunderbrand with Nicholas Kuhne.
Are you an author struggling to turn your expertise into a professionally published book without losing control of your rights and revenue? In this episode, we sit down with Michele DeFilippo, founder of 1106 Design, who's been transforming manuscripts into beautifully crafted books since 2001. With over 50 years of experience in the publishing industry, Michele has helped authors publish more than 4,000 books, offering hands-on guidance in manuscript editing, cover design, layouts, and more, while making sure authors retain full control over their work. And I think that's very important. So, Michele, welcome.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. I appreciate being here. I hope I can be helpful to your listeners.
Now, what I didn't mention is that you said you are a dreadful player of acoustic folk guitar.
Yes, unfortunately.
So I'd like to tell you that you are in great company, because I too am an awful, probably even worse player of acoustic guitar than you. But I was listening to some wonderful Sergio Mendes before this call, and that got me into the mood and made me forget about all of my terrible attempts at being on stage with the guitar. So I feel you.
He's amazing, isn't he?
He's lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Now, we've got a couple of nice things to talk about today. We're going to really be talking about lead magnets. I know you are in the publishing industry, but I think a lot of people forget that creating a fantastic ebook is also extremely important, and it's not as easy as people think. It's not just taking a random copy and slapping it on a page. And I see that your free guide, a brief guide to quality self-publishing, which can be downloaded for free at your website, I'll put the link in the description, has helped you generate a whole lot of money and a whole bunch of clients. So that takes us into the lead magnet side. So let's talk about that. First of all, for those who don't know what a lead magnet is, what on earth is a lead magnet?
Well, a lead magnet, we've all seen them. We may not be familiar with the term, but anytime you go to a website and the business says, download our free white paper or guide or summary or whatever, that's a lead magnet. And what it's doing is giving some information to the visitors so that they can learn more about the business without necessarily reading every word online. They can read it at their leisure, especially if it's a little bit longer. And it's just a way of, the visitor has come to your site and so they've expressed interest, but it's just a way to hang on to that interest a little bit longer and make your case, so to speak.
Have you come across the term of the customer journey?
Yes. Most customers, when they first come to a website, are just a little bit curious. They may find something that they like, but they may not be ready yet for a conversation. And they're certainly, in most cases, not ready for a salesman to start hounding them or for a bunch of automated emails to arrive in their inbox. But they may be interested in reading what you have to say in a more calm environment when they don't feel pressured. And then our experience has been when they do come back after reading that lead magnet, they are almost ready to buy and they just have a few questions left. So it doesn't take a whole lot of effort to create them, but in my opinion, it should look good. Sometimes lead magnets look like they've been thrown together in an amateurish way, and I think that does more harm than good to the business. But if you design a lead magnet to look good, it's not difficult to write because you already have all the answers and the information in your head probably. But what most businesses can benefit from is to hire somebody who knows how to pull it together, how to edit the text, how to make it a showpiece so that you're putting your best foot forward when someone comes to your website.
So you're more focused on, obviously, the design and the layout and getting it ready for print. When it comes to helping businesses who've got good content stuck in their heads but don't know how to really put it down on paper, is that something that you help with as well?
Absolutely. I think that having talked to so many authors now, you're a better writer than you think you are. Most people are better writers than they think they are. but they're just nervous about it and they feel like this pressure, they put pressure on themselves that they have to be better. You don't have to be an expert at writing. Just put it down, organize it to the best of your ability, and then that's where an editor can step in and think of all the things that you didn't necessarily think of yourself, spot the holes in your reasoning and organize it and smooth out the language.
Now, I've seen, after I've interviewed quite a few really good entrepreneurs, that those who write these ebooks or these lead magnets eventually end up with enough content to create a book, which is quite exciting. And that's something that, as you mentioned, everyone can write and everyone's got a book inside them somewhere. How often have you seen that once folks get into this process of writing or putting together good content for a lead magnet, that it leads into something bigger?
I think that's pretty common, right? Because that first step, that lead magnet is the first step. And that's always the most difficult step on any journey, is getting started. And I think that actually changes people's mindset a little bit, that they all of a sudden think, I do have something to say. And people are responding to it. And it's time maybe to flesh that out a little bit more and make it into a full-length book.
You've got a lead magnet. So you've gone to Michele and you've said, Michele, help, I need a wonderful lead magnet. You do it, and it is a masterpiece. This is something that is worthy of a Pulitzer Prize or whatever prize is most suitable. But now that you've got your lead magnet, now what?
Now you follow up with that customer, right? If you set it up in such a way that the customer has to enter an email address in order to download that lead magnet, now you have their email address and you can follow up with them. But I want to emphasize that the way things are being done lately today with, receiving 4 or 5 emails in your inbox every time you contact a company, I like to reassure people that we don't do that. I find it really annoying. We're all busy enough. We all get enough emails that you don't need to be pestered. You're an intelligent person and you can decide if you want more information or not. So maybe you could put a little reassurance in there. It says, don't worry, we're not going to spam your inbox if you express interest. We respect you. We understand you're busy, and if we're right for you, that's great, then we'll get together.
There's a difficult balance when you are writing an ebook or you are writing a lead magnet. For example, in my business, a brand agency, I do packaging design, I do logos, I do communications plans, I do a whole bunch of things. Do I put that all in one enormous ebook, or do I have the opportunity to split those up into a whole bunch of different, I don't know what you're going to call it, not a lead mag. Well, I mean, lead magnet is the process, but let's talk about these downloadable books.
Well, I wouldn't.
They're almost like brochures, right? But then it's not a brochure selling; it's a brochure giving you some information.
I think if you have a lot of information to share, you might want to break it up into multiple lead magnets and let people choose what subject they're interested in. But you don't want to overwhelm people. You just want to, let them know that you're an expert and you can help and provide a little bit of basic education. You don't have to tell everything in the lead magnet.
And I suppose it really helps filter out clients or what they're looking for, because if they download the entire one, which has got your entire company's details, you won't really know what they're looking for. But if they download the logo design ebook, then aha, I saw you downloaded our logo booklet. Let's talk a little bit about logos. What challenge, which ones do you love, etc. So it really gives you a nice opening into not just cold calling a client or speaking to them out of the blue. You've got something to talk about.
Yes, and it helps you, like you say, figure out what exactly they're interested in before you talk to them.
Exactly. Let's go a little bit more into 1106. I was going to say 1106, but then I listened to how you pronounced it on your very nice video that you have on your website. What kind of things can people expect when they come to you? So if I had to download your ebook, what kind of things am I going to find in there in terms of your service offerings?
Well, my lead magnet is called Publish Like the Pros. And so our focus is on independent book publishing. And what you'll find in my lead magnet is just a brief overview of the steps necessary to produce a market-ready book and why it's important to keep control of that book and not turn it over to a quote-unquote publisher, because the industry has gotten a lot more complicated in recent years. But at the beginning of independent publishing, the idea was and still is that the author is the publisher of the book. Now, a lot of people have forgotten that message, and I think a lot of authors think they need a publisher because they need services to produce the book. That's true. You do need design and editorial services to produce the book, but you don't have to work with a publisher who takes control of your book and takes control of your sales reports and your revenue stream and then doles out a little bit of money to you every time you sell a book. True independent publishing means you get all of the revenue from book sales directly to your bank account, and that's what we help authors do.
Are these authors who already have an understanding of how to market their books? Because obviously creating a book is great, but it's like a mime being hit by a tree in a forest. Nobody knows, or nobody's going to hear, nobody cares. But so the same thing with the book. You create a wonderful book now and you can do publishing on demand, etc. But the marketing side and actually selling these things is the next big challenge. Is that something you work on? And what kind of services are there along there? Because most people need to realize you're not going to necessarily have a number one bestseller on New York Times, maybe on Amazon, but how can folks make money out of their book sales?
Well, it is true that the marketing is the biggest challenge of all. It's enough work to write the book and it's some work to design it and get it ready editorially. But the marketing is difficult because we're all inundated with so many messages today. To a certain degree, if you go out there and you just say, here's my book, people are going to say, so what? So you have to get through that challenge. And part of the way to do that is to figure out, even before you start writing, who's my audience and where do they hang out online and what burning problem do they have that I can solve in my book. And if you focus your attention and your writing on that, you have a better chance of reaching people and getting them to push that buy button when they do find out about your book.
I've heard from a lot of entrepreneurs that a book is one of the best business cards that you can have. Maybe talk about that a little.
It absolutely is. But that's where the lead magnet comes in. It doesn't have to be a full-length book. It can be if you wanted to do that, but it establishes your authority beyond the spam emails we all get and beyond the websites that people might happen to find. If you put the effort in, and again, you have to produce a good lead magnet or a good book. You can't put out something that's filled with typos and not edited and not designed, because otherwise you're just shooting yourself in the foot. But if you put in the effort, people will recognize that effort. Even if they don't know the first thing about publishing, they'll recognize a good product when they see it, and they'll recognize good advice when they read it, and it will be successful for you.
Out of the 4,000 plus books that you have published during your illustrious career, which ones have been standout for you? Have any of these folks who've self-published through you actually been picked up by any of the big?
That is really rare. All right. So I tell authors, don't even put that on your radar because it's a complicated equation, right? If you've self-published and you've sold a lot of books and then you approach a major publisher and say, do you want my book? Their response is going to be, well, no, you probably already got a lot of the sales. Why would we be interested now? It's either traditionally published or independently published, as long as you independently publish the right way and you don't wind up with some of these middlemen companies who really don't do anything for you except take your revenue from sales.
So who would be your ideal customer? Because obviously you've got, I had a look at the services that you offer, and maybe we can go through the services, but who is the ideal person to come through, and why should they come to you rather than going through the traditional publishing route?
Well, again, it's a matter of control, and it's a matter of how long the publisher is going to pay attention to you and your book. When you independently publish, one of the main benefits is that you can promote it forever. There's no time limit. A major publisher, if they pick you up, not only will they change the book likely to make it what they think it should be, but they may stay interested for a year, year and a half, and then they're on to the next big thing, and your book goes to the backlist. When you independently publish, you keep control of your book, and you can promote it endlessly. I wrote my book in 2012, and I'm still using it, and it's still working. So it depends on what you want that book to do for you. But I always vote for the author keeping control of their work.
Let's talk a little bit about the control side, because it boils down to cash money at the end of the day.
Yes.
What benefit is there from self-publishing versus going to a traditional publisher or a name publisher in terms of actual money?
Well, traditional publishing is, first of all, very difficult to get, right? And if you do get picked up by a traditional publisher, the benefit to the author is you don't have to put out any money for editorial and design services. The publisher picks that up, and then you'll get a small royalty on every book sold. But the publisher makes money on your book forever. They do deserve to recoup their investment, right? So that's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. If you independently publish, you do need to spend money for services, but then you get, when it's done correctly, all of the revenue from sales directly to your bank account. Now, these middlemen publishing companies that I talked about, what they're doing now is they're charging the author to produce the book, and they're also taking money out of their pocket every time a book is sold. So they're getting paid on both ends. And that doesn't work out too well for the author at all. I've heard some horror stories of authors making maybe 90 cents on a book or $1.50 for every book that's sold, when if they did it independently under our model, they might be making $4 to $6 per book. So you have to be careful.
Yeah, and that's a lot of money if you consider that, like you said, a lot of these publishers go on to the next shiny thing, because they act almost like VC businesses. They back 100 books and hope that one of them makes it big. And if that does, then the rest of them are just put down the chute, basically. And you're left, if you pardon my expression, sucking on the hind teat.
Yes. Well, that's why I do have a problem with the publishing companies that promise a bestseller, because even in traditional publishing, with all their expertise and all their money, it's a rare occurrence to have a bestseller.
Yeah. Now, we're talking about publishing. Now, one of the big expenses is obviously printing a whole bunch of books, but I read somewhere on your website where there's this print on demand. Now, that's again where the publishers make cash money. They don't outlay any money in terms of printing a huge amount of books, but they make it on the print on demand. So tell me about a little bit on print on demand and how, what you do helps authors make more money.
Well, it used to be that you had to print 5,000 books or so and then hope to sell them. That was before print on demand. Print on demand came in around 20 years ago, and it was first invented by Amazon. Amazon and Ingram Spark are now the two print on demand platforms that people should use. Anybody else is uploading your book to kdp.com and ingramspark.com, only they're doing it under their name, not your name. So print on demand is great. It means that when the customer orders the book from Amazon or any other online retailer, it's not printed until it's bought and paid for. So the author does not have to put out any money at all for printing inventory. That's a thing of the past.
That's amazing. I love that concept. So let's go again through the kind of services that you offer. So what does 1106 offer in terms of services?
Well, in terms of what's most popular, most authors will come to us when they have a manuscript that's completed, and we'll begin with an editorial evaluation to figure out what level of editing it might need. Sometimes that's substantive editing. Most times it's copy editing. And so we'll go through that, and while the editing is happening, we'll design the cover and show the author several designs, usually 3 designs to start, and we'll work back and forth until we get a cover that everyone is happy with. Then the next step after that is interior design and typesetting, and that's an old-fashioned word that everyone has forgotten about. Now, today it's called, you'll see the word formatting everywhere, but it's not formatting. That's what people do in Word or in some other automated system. Real typesetting is very detailed. In fact, we have on our Substack newsletter, we just released a newsletter on that subject actually today. So if anybody wants to go there, they can subscribe to our newsletter for free and read that. Typesetting is very detailed. It's meticulous. Typesetters take care of all kinds of things that you would never think about. But when these things are attended to, the reading experience is very smooth. The reader is not distracted by poor spacing or tight and loose lines or too many hyphens or all sorts of things that we fix as a matter of course. And so that takes a lot of time.
Yeah. So I think, as you mentioned, typesetting is something that people don't necessarily think about. And I'm sure all of you have had an experience where you're reading a book and the sentence doesn't flow very nicely and you've got to go to the next page, or, it's all the spacing. It's like reading the Bible. The Bible has been really well set out. Somebody did real good typesetting on that, so you don't have to read, and verily I say, unto thee, it's all done in a way that flows nicely. And I suppose the choice of font is important as well in terms of typesetting.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time picking just the right font and just the right size and line spacing and letter spacing and word spacing. We deal with all of that. Now, I tell authors they should go to a bookstore and they should start paying careful attention to the interior pages of a book and how they might be designed and so forth. And then, because sometimes authors will say, oh, I can do that myself, it's easy. But if you take your Word file or your own attempt at interior layout and you compare it to books in a bookstore, you will absolutely positively see the difference.
If you've written a kid story, as an example, would you have illustrators on hand to do options for folks who've got a great kids book idea with a written transcript and add images, or is that beyond your purview?
No, we can actually work with the author. That's one of my pet peeves, because a lot of times authors will come to us with the illustrations already in hand, and they've picked an illustrator and have hired an illustrator and have done what they think is correct. And a lot of times it's completely wrong. They haven't thought about the size of the book page. They haven't thought about the resolution of the images, or even whether or not the images have been thought about correctly to enhance the story and not confuse readers. So my first advice to people who have a children's book is do not hire the illustrator. Hire your designer first, and then together you'll work out how the pages need to fall. And the designer can actually use their training to help you choose an illustrator who is qualified and actually knows how to draw. You'd be amazed at some of the illustrations we see that are just not up to professional standards.
Well, my grandmother was a professional illustrator, so she's illustrated, hundreds of books, and she was a newspaper illustrator as well. So, equivalent of what you'd see on the likes of, not the New York Times, what's that other one? The New Yorker. I knew it had New York in it. So those kind of illustrations. And I've got all of her original drawings, and it's got, space for the text. And this is where also all of the titles were hand drawn. So this even before your time, Michele. So that's fascinating having a look at those.
No, illustration is a rare talent. In fact, that's another reason for authors to go to a bookstore and look at the children's books that are released by major publishers, and you will see the quality of the illustrations that you need to get for your own book, because your book will be competing with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I would like to encourage folks who are interested in understanding how to create a beautiful lead magnet to come and chat to you. And also, if you've got your transcript and your novel waiting gathering dust on a shelf, don't wait. Don't let your book die inside you. So make sure that you chat to Michele. And you can get a free guide published like the pros on design.com. I'll put the link in the description. Yeah, and Michele, some very good insights, and I hope this inspires and gets folks thinking, oh, yes, let me get cracking and get in touch with you.
Well, I hope so too. Thank you for having me, Nicholas.
Been a pleasure. Bye-bye. I really do appreciate your comments, so why not go and watch this live on YouTube, or go to my website, kuhne.no, that's kuhne.no, for more information.